What is up, everybody? Purple and Gold Podcast, Monday, March the 2nd. LSU 3-0 on the weekend. Three lackluster offensive performances, but three outstanding pitching performances to win games 5-2, 3-1, and 3-0. Tigers take on Northeastern here in about 40 minutes from right now. The lineup has been posted. Jake Brown is leading off. Derek Curiel is batting second. John Pearson is actually in the lineup at first base. Zach York's going to get a night off from first base. He's going to DH. Cade Arenbeety's all the way down at 8. Braden Simpson's in left field. And Trent Caraway's back in the 9 hole. I want to talk a little bit about this past weekend, and I want to focus first on the positive, and the positive was the pitching. Kason Evans, Cooper Moore, and William Schmidt combined to give you 20 2/3 innings. They're giving you length, which is what you want to see with one more weekend to go before SEC play starts. Kason Evans, again, worked around some of his own doing with the free passes, but all in all was great and gave LSU a chance to win. Cooper Moore was phenomenal, 10 strikeouts. William Schmidt, 7 1/3 innings of shutout ball. He walked no one. And Gavin Guidry on Friday and Devin Sheeran on Saturday took you home without any real trouble. As far as the Sunday game goes, it was probably LSU's, I don't want to say poorest effort of the year, but it was in my opinion, their poorest output of the year. Dartmouth really gave LSU 2 of the 3 runs. Derek Curiel has been battling some food poisoning this weekend. He hasn't let off. He was the DH Friday night. He wasn't even able to play the field. Even though he had a big hit on Friday night, he does not look like himself right now. He and Stephen Milam have yet to hit a home run. I don't know if Cade Arenbeety's still battling whatever foot issue he had, but he hasn't looked as sharp at the plate this weekend as he did last weekend. I am very interested to see what happens tonight. So Cooper Williams is going to get the start for LSU tonight. I would suspect they would like to get some length out of him. If they could get 2 innings, if they could get maybe into the 3rd inning, if they could get him to 45 or 50 pitches, I would imagine they would potentially do that. LSU has a very important road game on Wednesday in Lafayette against ULL, a game that I think LSU will certainly like to win. And so you would like to have as many relievers available, I would imagine, for that game as possible. I think whoever you don't see tonight amongst guys like Reagan Ricken, Marcos Paz, Zion Theophilus, if you don't see one or more of them tonight, they would be candidates to start on Wednesday. Jaden Newt got the last out of the game yesterday. I suppose he would also be a candidate to start on Wednesday. I do think you will see Santiago Garcia tonight. I do think you will see Zach Cowan tonight. And like I said, I think you'll see someone out of Ricken, Paz, Theophilus. And then obviously if LSU needs to win the game at the end, I don't think they would hesitate to use someone who was rested, whether that be Guidry, whether that be Sheeran. I don't think you would see Maverick Rizzi or Jaden Newt since they pitched late in the game yesterday. So what do we want to see from LSU tonight? Well, Northeastern has just lost everything off their pitching staff. Their pitching staff was horrendous coming into this weekend. They pitched very well against LSU on Saturday, played a 12-11 game with Grambling. You're going to be on their number 3 pitcher. LSU's got to break out of this funk tonight. They just have to. They've got to put some runs on the board. They've got to have some better at-bats. They haven't had terrible at-bats. I mean, it's been a lot of flyouts and stuff, but they have walked 20 times I think between walks and hit by pitches in the 3 games, they've had some base runners. They've had just a really, really bad stretch of trying to get big hits with runners on base. That started the other night against McNeese, and it's continued throughout the weekend. Thought Jake Brown was going to get him going yesterday with that first inning homer, and it just never really materialized. The good news, as we talked about, is the pitching. The good news is you've won all these games. LSU needs to win this game tonight, and they probably need to win it with some offensive output. It's a very interesting game for all of those reasons. The fact that LSU's not really playing well. I was asked over the weekend by someone, is LSU bored? I don't know if that's the right word. Do I think we're getting into that part of the schedule where you sort of ramped up to play in that tournament, then you sort of ramp back down and you're trying to ramp back up in a couple of weeks to play Vanderbilt, but McNeese snuck up on you. You do have ULL on Wednesday. You do have Sacramento State this weekend. You want to see that consistency from LSU's offense, and you want to see them put up some runs tonight. LSU's women's basketball team, very ho-hum yesterday on the road in Starkville. They beat Mississippi State 72-63. They have the number 4 seed in the SEC women's basketball tournament. They do have the double bye. They will play the second game of the day on Friday at 1:30. If they win that game, the number 1 seed, South Carolina, likely is waiting for LSU on Saturday. LSU's men's basketball team had a very poor performance over the weekend at home against a struggling Oklahoma team. Oklahoma got out, was up 8 at half, was up 16 in the second half, coasted to a victory. We've talked a lot about Matt McMahon and the situation that may or may not be afoot with men's basketball. LSU's got to go on the road tomorrow night and play Auburn. They've got to play Texas A&M to end the regular season this weekend. Can't see them winning either game. That would put them 3-15 in the league. I know the $10.5 million to buy out Matt McMahon and the staff. I know the money to pay a new coach. I know the money to pay a new roster. This is just my editorial opinion. I feel like LSU is going to make a move on Matt McMahon. Now, do I think they are stealthily going to wait for NC State's season to be over, whenever that is, in the ACC tournament or the NCAA tournament, and attempt to go through some back channels, if they haven't already, to get Will Wade? Is that what I expect to happen? I expect that attempt will be made. But in the event that they can't lure Will Wade away from NC State, I am of the opinion that I still think they need to make a move. Now look, going to hire the next unproven sort of coach from a mid-major, is that going to rally the fan base? No, but I think sometimes you just reach a point in apathy, in results, in atmosphere, that you just have to make a move. And look, LSU made $2 million in revenue off of men's basketball last year. There are reports that if LSU was good at men's basketball and packed the house and made the NCAA tournament, could they make upwards of $6 to $8 million a year? Maybe. That's the thought. So it's not just money, right? Gordon McKernan he's one of LSU's biggest boosters. He gave an interview last week and he said, look, LSU men's basketball is part of the brand identity. And when you're not delivering the results like they're not doing, inevitably it hurts the brand. And, you've seen what Jay Johnson can do. You've seen what Jay Clark can do. You've seen what Kim Mulkey can do. You've seen the enthusiasm that Lane Kiffin has brought here. I know in this day and age of revenue sharing, I know in this day and age of athletic departments at major colleges trying not to run in the black, I understand the thought is you have to pick and choose what you want to be good at. Do I expect LSU to be a perennial NCAA tournament contender without Will Wade? No, but if you go hire some other mid-major coach I think you've at least bought yourself a couple of years of less apathy than what you have right now. I think Matt McMahon's a hell of a nice guy, and I think he's probably a pretty good basketball coach. And I think for whatever reasons, injuries, lack of money put into the program the years before this, the sanctions or possible perceived sanctions that were hanging over his head at the beginning of his tenure, for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out. But I think it's time to acknowledge that it hasn't worked out. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about LSU and Northeastern. We're going to have my son, Cody, on the podcast tomorrow. He wants to talk about his experience. He went to Alex Box Stadium 2 Wednesdays ago when LSU played Nichols. And so we're going to have him on the podcast tomorrow to talk about that. We'll preview the men's basketball game against Auburn. We'll recap the game against Northeastern. As always, be good to one another. And always, 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 go Tigers.